on this computer. All right. So welcome everyone. Feel free to turn your camera on if you want, but no pressure if you don't want to. So my name is Victoria, and we're the people with the cameras on. We're all part of Pasifikas in Medicine, which is an organization led by medical students, and kind of like our mission statement is we want to increase the representation of Pacific Islanders in medicine. One of the ways we do that is through our workshop series, which is kind of like our outreach to pre-med students who are interested in medical school. So this is this is our first event of the year, and kind of what we'll be talking about today is just like a broad overview of kind of like why we decided to do medicine and just, you know, broad strokes, stuff like that. So yeah, I'll go ahead and have everyone introduce themselves. We can start with Maka and just kind of talk about like where we're from, what school you go to, all that good stuff.
Thanks, Victoria, for the introduction. Yeah, my name is Maka Pickard. I'm from Hawaii. I'm from the island of Oahu on North Shore, a small town called Kahuku. So I did undergrad at BYU in Provo, Utah, and I'm in medical school in New York State in Rochester. So it's like Western New York, kind of by Buffalo. So I'm a fourth year here at Rochester.
Yeah, whoever wants to go next.
I can go next. Hi guys, my name is Micah. I'm from Utah originally. I also did my undergrad there in Utah, Southern Utah, studied business. And then I got accepted to medical school out here in Florida. It's called Nova Southeastern. And I'm a third year. And then, yeah, it's a little bit about me.
I'll go next. Hi guys, my name is Drew. I'm also from Utah. Went to undergrad at BYU, and I'm a second year medical student at Ohio State.
Hi everyone, my name is Hanikka Muña. I am from Guam and the San Francisco Bay Area. I went to undergrad at San Francisco State University, and I'm a first year at the University of Michigan Medical School.
All right, awesome. Thank you for introducing yourselves and offering to be on this panel. The first question that I have for you guys, which, you know, everyone can respond, is, and it's kind of a loaded question, but like, how did you kind of know that you wanted to pursue medicine and like go to medical school? Whoever wants to start us off. You know what, that's a loaded question, so I can start us off. So I was fortunate enough to have a mom who was working, well, still works in the medical field. So I kind of like had her to look up to for my whole childhood, and that was kind of what sparked my interest in it. So I guess that was kind of how I knew. And then as I got older and, you know, when I was applying to colleges and stuff, it sounds cliche, but it just kind of like made sense for me to do that. It was always like something I was interested in and passionate about. So yeah, I guess that's kind of how I knew.
I can go next. You know, this really is a question you get asked all the time, you know, even when you're applying to med school, you know, so everyone else can keep that in mind. But for me, I think, you know, I grew up around sports a lot. And I think, you know, seeing injuries and stuff, and then, you know, seeing people come out, I think that cultivated an interest in being around that population. And then I was able to, shadow a few of those trainers, doctors, things like that. And I think the culmination of, the leadership opportunities and what you're able to do as a physician sort of got my interest in that. And I think, ultimately that's what led me to, or at least that's what piqued my interest into going to med school, is the short and sweet version.
I can go next. I kind of had a similar experience. I didn't, nobody in like my immediate family were doctors, but I do have two older brothers who did pursue the medical field before me. That kind of influenced me, but I feel like I already had kind of an interest before. I also was kind of like involved in sports and had an interest in athletic training and physical therapy. So for a while, I was kind of like not sure what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to do something within the healthcare field. And medicine was always kind of in my radar, and I just started pursuing it, and I really enjoyed like science classes, and I just kind of never strayed from that path. I was always open to changing, which I think was important, that I was like always looking for other opportunities, like if I wanted to pursue like computer science or engineering or something like that, but I just never found anything I wanted to do more than medicine, so I just stuck with it.
I can go next. So I think actually I started getting interested in medicine when I was younger. My younger cousin, she like developed a brain tumor when she was a child, and like I don't know how we got a hold of this, but we got a hold of like the surgical image, and I remember just like watching it and being like completely fascinated by the video or this of the surgery. And then as time went on, I like that dream kind of like went in and out. I gained interest, lost interest, but I think it was more solidified when I became an undergraduate, and I had been interested in physiology, and I just wanted to find a way to like help my family who like had a lot of chronic health conditions, but then not knowing how. And I think finding mentors in medicine helped me discover like which field in like specifically within medicine that I wanted to do.
I think for myself, it was kind of seeing a lot of family members of my own being really sick and kind of seeing their hospital course, kind of going through the different fields of medicine based off of my family members who were sick, and kind of just seeing how the physicians treated my family members and how the different members of the different team, the nursing staff, all the people involved with their care, also really got me interested. And as I went through and took the classes in undergrad, those were the ones that I found the most interesting, like the science classes and classes you need to take to get to medical school. So kind of a combination of many things, but what actually started my interest was seeing my family members really ill, going through the hospital system and seeing how they were cared for.
Great. Yeah, all great answers. My next question, and also I forgot to say, but our audience members, if you guys have questions, feel free to type them in the chat and then we'll get to them. But yeah, if anything comes up, feel free. What is your favorite and least favorite part about being in medical school?
I can start there. So favorite thing, I think to some extent everyone goes into medical school, right? Because they like some aspect of it, which hopefully is true for most people. So I do like the medicine part. I think it's fun to, especially now being on rotations, have people come in with all these different illnesses, and then you're finally to the point of like, you can kind of try and solve the mystery and give treatments and feel like you're contributing. So that's a lot of fun. I think my least favorite part is I feel like medical school is always a grind. There's always some kind of test coming up, or if there's not some kind of test, there's always an extracurricular. There's always something you could be doing to help maximize your resume. I think to that extent, if you don't have, good ways to relax, it just always feels like you're on the go.
Yeah, I'm not in rotations yet, and so I don't get that clinical rotations quite yet, which I'm looking forward to. So I guess right now in the kind of school, like more preclinical aspect, I definitely I don't know, it's definitely enjoyable, the amount of knowledge that there is and how much you're able to learn, but it's also least favorite is it's kind of overwhelming how much there is at the same time. So it's a good thing and a bad thing. And also kind of what Micah said, the extracurriculars can be very demanding, and there's a lot that it's stressful in itself if you're not doing anything, because then it's oh shoot, I gotta be doing something to build my resume. I guess something else that I've liked is just kind of moving to a new area and exploring something new. I never really thought in my life I'd move to Ohio, but just kind of moving out here, I've learned a lot about just different cultures and just exploring different parts of the country, and I've really enjoyed that aspect of medical school. So I think that's been very cool for me.
I can go next. So my favorite part of medical school probably is just the relationship that I've been able to make with my fellow classmates. Kind of like what Micah and Drew kind of alluded to. Medical school is a grind, so you really create a strong bond with those that go through medical school with you. And so I have a lot of friends from undergrad, but I feel like my friends from medical school have we've grown to have a strong bond as well, because we go through a lot of the same challenges, a lot of the same exams. And my least favorite part is Drew will get this next year when he's a third year, but in third year of medical school, you're constantly being evaluated. And so that part can be stressful because they're evaluating your clinical knowledge, your ability to talk with patients, how well you work in a team, your ability to be a leader, even if you're not in a leadership role. So there's a lot of little things that they're looking for. And it's all to help you become a better physician in the end. But when you're going through it, it can be really stressful. So that's probably my least favorite part of medical school.
I think for me personally, my favorite part of medical school is finally doing the things that I've been dreaming of doing, learning, feeling less hopeless, I can potentially help something. One day is a good feeling. I did take 4.5 years, so it was a long time coming to get to this point. And then I think my least favorite part was so far has been the adjustment to medical school from working a 9 to 5. It's been, I think it's just being comfortable being uncomfortable, if that makes sense. Always trying new things and having to continuously grow in a short amount of time has been my least favorite thing, but it's probably going to make me better in the end.
Yeah, definitely echoing all of that. It looks like Kaela just joined us. If you want to, sorry, my dogs are barking. If you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, what year you are, your school, hometown, all that good stuff.
Hi guys, sorry, I tried to log on from my phone and I just don't think it was working. I'm Kaela Acuff. I grew up in Orange County in California, and did undergrad at UC Santa Barbara before coming down here and eventually matriculating into UC San Diego. I am on a research year between my 3rd and 4th year of med school, so technically an MS4, but haven't quite started yet. And yeah, I don't know if there was anything else I forgot to say.
Sweet.
Cool.
Yeah, it looks like we got a question in the chat asking about how to like become a good candidate when you're applying to med school. So I guess that would just entail like, yeah, like what kinds of things do you guys think would make someone like a good candidate when applying and stuff?
I could start again. So I can speak at least for my school, because I've been on the admission, so I get a little bit to see what they're interested in and maybe some of the pitfalls. So at least for my school, they really do have a holistic interview. You know, we take applicants with various strengths. So I think it's figuring out what you're good at and then trying to tailor your education towards that. Obviously, there's going to be cutoffs for certain things. So if you can have a really good MCAT, you know, that's definitely a benefit. I know for my school, the average was 512, and I think the next incoming class is going to be like a 513. So test score is important. I know not everyone's a super good test taker. So maybe if you can gear yourself into preparing for that earlier than later. But, you know, there's other things. If you have a lot of healthcare experience, or if you've shadowed a lot, or if you have, you know, other extracurriculars. But I think everyone's an individual and they have, you know, their own strengths. So I think to that extent, figuring out how to make yourself a good applicant is really just sitting down with maybe a mentor and just seeing where your strengths are, and then you can just apply towards those.
I feel like this is a very underrated part of applications that people don't really think about, but establishing a really strong narrative, kind of like what Micah was saying, was like building something that you're already good at. Like if you're able to kind of express your like true self and your vulnerabilities on your application and really build like that narrative of yourself, really why you want to go into medicine, that can be a really big difference in your application to set you apart from a lot of other like more generic applications that are just like, I like science, I like helping people, that's why I'm in medicine. But if you can really go into the specifics and kind of truly like understand yourself, I know that's hard to do, but just like, I don't know, like it kind of helps you build your narrative. It asks, I mean, it answers the questions of why you did certain volunteer activities, why you did certain research, what you're interested in, and it just makes it more cohesive of an application in general.
Yeah, I will say too, like, I think every single one of my schools asked me kind of about my culture and about where I came from. And I think you need to understand, like, we really are so underrepresented in medicine, which is, you know, why we do these events. But like, you can really, like, don't undersell your life experiences for sure. Like being Pacific Islander was a huge part of my application. It's a huge part of my personal statement, my activities. I mean, even me, like I've been dancing, like all types of Polynesian dancing since I was a kid. And all my schools asked me about that as well. It showed dedication, it showed leadership, because I taught it and I had been doing it for, you know, 15, 20 years. Like, and talking about the community that I came from and how that led me to medicine, like the emphasis that we put on family and community and taking care of each other is really powerful, especially to people who don't know where we come from. And so I would say, like, you know, kind of along the same lines, like staying true to yourself, but also recognizing that you come from a very unique place, wanting to be a Pacific Islander in medicine. And definitely, like, it sometimes feels like a little bit like you're using it in a way that, like, I felt a little guilty of at first. But then I came to realize, like, cultural competency is huge within medicine as well as is representation. So yeah, I think on top of all the things you hear about a medical school applicant of like research and clinical skills and all of that, like, do not undersell the personal narrative, because I think that was the reason that I was so successful in my applications.
Kaela kind of talked about this already, but I think it is a good lead into one of the questions I had for you guys. Did you find it like important to distinguish yourselves as like Pacific Islander students when you were applying and interviewing? And also just kind of like as a personal aside, you brought up like mentioning how you danced and stuff, and that's also something I do is I do hula, Tahitian, like everything, and that was also a huge part of my application. And I think, you know, if you have things like that, it does help you stand out a lot. Sorry, I don't want to like talk too much over you guys, but it reminded me of that. But yeah, what do you guys think about it?
I guess I could talk about this. So actually on multiple applications, I'm not going to word it correctly, but one of the questions was like, how do you feel that your X identity, whether it's like ethnic, racial, like identities, or other identities, like has affected you or like is affected in society or something like that. So it does come up actually like in either in the primary or the secondary application. And personally, like I really did feel that it was an important part of my journey, just understanding how like just being raised culturally, like affected the person that I am today, like even my journey to medicine. So I definitely mentioned it, but I did like what Kaela was saying, like I did feel guilty at first, like I felt like I was using it, but now that I'm like where I'm at, I realized that like it is like so important. It is so important that like you like recognize the way that your different identities, it doesn't just have to be like PI, but like you meet other identities as well, like intersect in your life and like contribute to like your overall narrative.
I just have I think a lot of things have been said and all the answers have been great. I just want to add one little thing so like when you apply to medical school, there's a lot of schools that require supplemental essays, I think they're called, or secondaries. And a lot of times they ask a diversity question. And so, but just saying you're a Pacific Islander, I feel is not enough. You want to say how being a Pacific Islander affects like how you look at life, your perspective, your culture, and how it kind of makes you who you are. Because sometimes if you just say, "Oh, I'm Native Hawaiian and that's how I'm diverse," like it doesn't say much. You got to say like how identifying as Native Hawaiian has made you approach your studies in a certain way or your interactions with others, and kind of like what everybody has been saying. Just lean into that narrative. And another thing I wanted to add that Michael was saying is because at the school I go to, this is like totally unrelated to what I just said, but just helping out with admissions. But a lot of schools use a point system, and so like you gotta hit the basic cutoffs of grades, MCAT, which I know is a hassle for a lot of people and kind of a tough thing to overcome for some. But once you hit like their cutoffs, then they look for the more who is the person, and that's where the diversity component or who you are really comes in. So as long as you hit those cutoffs, who you are as a person is what really gets you into the school versus what we typically think, which is the GPA, MCAT, and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I know those cutoffs can change per school. I think some schools may still really look heavily like how high your GPA is, but I think a lot of schools, like what Maka was saying, is a cutoff. So yeah, just you'd have to research each individual school. I know the U cutoff was like 3.4, but it might have been lower. I don't know if anyone knows that cutoff, but yeah, just look at the schools you're interested in and see if that it says on their website what their cutoff is. And if it is, then just meet that requirement and then focus on other parts of your application.
So yeah, I saw the, sorry, I'm talking a lot, but I saw the question in the chat about undergraduate GPA, and I know Drew touched on it. It's been a while since I applied, like I think 4 years now, but there's a website that has like all the details of all the U.S. medical schools. I don't know if someone can remember. I think it's like related to the AMCAS, and you can kind of see like schools will release their GPA and MCAT cutoffs. And so like when I was applying, as long as my GPA and MCAT were kind of in that bar, like, and I felt like it was a place I could be happy, I considered applying to those schools. So I don't know if anyone on the video call can remind the viewer or tell the viewers of that website, but I forgot the actual website. But
Are you talking about like the MSAR, the like thing
yeah,
that
I'm sorry, yeah,
yeah,
that's what
yeah.
it's called. Yeah. So like if for people who are on the call, if you could write down like msar.com, I think it's called, or it's through like the American Medical School Association, I believe. But every school has to release their data of the students they accepted or their MCAT and GPA was, just so they can be transparent.
I think the other thing that's important too is that especially if you choose to go in like a non-traditional path, then your GPA is going to be less, not unimportant. It's still very, very important, but less important. Like my GPA, I believe, was somewhere around a 3.4, but my science GPA was lower. It was like all my extra stuff that brought my grade up. So my science GPA was very low, especially for like even the schools I was interviewing at. Like I would look at their stats and it was like kind of, you know, discouraging. But I think the important thing too is that if you can get a really good MCAT score, which I know is not an easy thing to do, but if you can do that, that can show that you have the ability to obtain the knowledge, like, and to kind of keep up with the coursework that you'll need in med school. Alternatively, like I did a post-bac program, and that was really great for me because I didn't know the first thing about studying for the MCAT or like how to apply to med school or anything. And my program set us up with mentors and like MCAT prep and things like that. And so for that, I think my GPA was like a 3.97 or something for that year. And so every interview I walked into, they were like, yeah, okay, so your undergrad wasn't great, but you know, you did great in your post-bac and you did well in your MCAT. And so they kind of just like didn't care that my GPA was as low as it was. And like I say this, like going to UCSD, which is like a very hard school to get into, and like they just genuinely like didn't care at that point. So if you are in that position where you're like, I'm screwed because my GPA is, you know, too low, it's the holistic approach is important, but there's also ways that you can kind of show them like, no, I can handle this. And there's opportunities in your application as well within your, you know, secondaries. And I think there's even like a box in the general application where you can say like, you know, this is why this happened. Like, this is why my grades weren't great. I was focusing on these things, or this was going on in my life. But, you know, I did this and I, you know, that shows that, you know, I'm ready kind of thing. So this is again, where it's really important to kind of like know your story and really lay it out there for them, so that they can really understand where you're coming from. And that's probably the hardest part of it, is just being vulnerable enough to say like, yeah, I've made mistakes, but I came back from it. And that ultimately is more powerful than someone who tries to like, you know, hide it, or if you try to like underplay it. Like if you can admit mistakes and how you fix them, like we do that for the rest of our lives as doctors, so schools value that as well.
Yeah, that just reminded me of when I interviewed for med school. They actually like they look through all of your grades and if there's like kind of like a trend, or if you like fell off of the trend, they'll ask you about it. Like they were like, why did you get this grade in physics 2? And if you can like kind of explain that to them, it also like, it's mostly just because they want to know what to tell the admissions committee when they're discussing your application. So if you have like you know, any type of reason, or like, you know, it was just going through a hard time or feeling very overwhelmed with applications, then that's definitely valuable too. So My next question is about like picking a major for undergrad. I guess like how did you guys decide on one, and like do you feel like the major you chose like affected your application process at all?
Oh, I was gonna say not at all for me. I don't think my major was important at all in my application, at least. I was exercise science. I just did it because I thought it was really interesting. And I feel like because I really enjoyed it, like I learned a lot from doing exercise science. And I think those things have actually helped me a lot in med school, at least um, when I'm like learning about musculoskeletal system. I have that background, which helps, and especially in anatomy. So I wouldn't tailor your degree on something that you think will look more impressive, rather do something that you are more interested in and that'll be more beneficial for you.
Yeah, so I can add to that. So in undergrad, I studied business management. And then I also got an MBA. And I was quite surprised at, how many interviews I went to, and it just seemed like nobody cared at all. So, it really is important to pick a degree that you like. I think personally for me, I decided to go more with the business realm because I think that stuff appealed more to me. Obviously, I liked the medical school, but I didn't really like, the undergrad biology and the cell stuff and the histology and all that. So I really did try to avoid that. The downside to that was I completed the bare minimum for the state school that I went to. So the bare minimum that the University of Utah required, but that did hurt me when I was applying because I realized, I really only qualified to apply to like 30 schools or something. So there was a huge list of schools that I think I would have been interested in, but I just didn't have the prereqs. So that's definitely something to keep in mind.
Yeah, I was microbio. I chose it because honestly, like I really did like biology. But I didn't like a lot of the general bio stuff. I really liked the nitty gritty stuff, which was part of my major in microbiology at UCSB. It was like, I had to do the virology and like, sorry, my dog is coughing. I don't know if you can hear that. She's like making noise back there. Anyway, it had a lot of the courses that were like the nitty gritty stuff of bio that I really liked. Alternative, the con to that is that it like the classes were much harder. So my GPA suffered for sure. The only benefit I really would say of like, if you're thinking about bio versus not bio is like, it's a lot easier to get the prereqs at some schools that you need. So if you do something else, you're going to have to try and plan into your schedule how to get those classes you want, or, you're going to have to take extra time after graduating to kind of get those required classes. But even now, like, again, I'm also on the admissions committee, and like, they literally like, we don't care what the major is. The only reason they care is like, someone has a relatively low GPA, but they're like biomedical engineering, then like, they're going to be like, okay, well, that's a really hard major, as opposed to if they did like something that's considered a little bit easier and did not as well in their GPA, then they might that might raise a few more red flags than if it was a harder major. But nobody sits there and goes like, oh, you did, microbio versus communications. Like if we did all the same courses and everything, then they don't care what your actual major was in.
Just wanted to add one thing. I think I chose physiology, which like was able to like tick off all the like prereqs for med school. One thing that, I mean, hindsight's 2020, but I almost like did regret like not pursuing something that I actually wanted to do in undergrad. Like SF State had like a Pacific Islander ethnic studies like major or minor, and like those kinds of things, like while it's like external to like getting to medical school, it like also like fulfills like your life, or could fulfill your life, and like could impact it in a positive way. And you never know like where that could also like intersect with your interest in medicine. So like just, I mean, hindsight's 2020, but like if you have an interest in something that is also not like directly related to medicine, then like I encourage you to pursue that. Maybe with like, while you have more flexibility in undergrad, because now like I'm in medicine and I'm like, okay, all I do is medicine, and I don't have like enough time to like do the other things that like I'm also interested in.
Yeah, I guess, and I'll share part of my story. I actually majored in linguistics, and I did pre-med track. I just like, I wanted to do like biochemistry when I came in, I think just because it sounded cool. And then once I actually got to, you know, the point where I was taking like organic chemistry, I was like, no, I don't want to do like more than I have to. But I just always liked, you know, like learning about other cultures, and I thought that was cool. My older brother is going to grad school for linguistics, so I kind of knew that I wanted to do medicine. And once I realized that like I can still study something that I really loved and like be pre-med at the same time, that was like a game changer for me, because I knew I didn't want to go to grad school for linguistics. I knew I wanted to go to med school, and I'm really glad I did it that way, because it kind of allowed me to, you know, still do something I enjoyed and hit all the requirements. Looks like, oh, how did you prepare for the MCAT? Yeah, anyone want to start?
I wiped the MCAT from my memory. I forgot what happened. Nah. In all seriousness, so I'll admit, my standardized test taking ability is probably on the lower end. So I actually took out a loan to do like a test prep course, and I wanted to share that number. Like if you email me, I don't want to make people feel uncomfortable if it was like a low price or high price, depending on how you look at it. But yeah, I took out a small loan for like a MCAT prep course. And if it wasn't for that, I don't think I would have done well in MCAT, because it was just very structured, and it's like, here's your plan for the next 7 months. You would do this week, you'll do this the next week, and there's like practice tests and sessions that you went to with your peers. So the program I use is called Altius, but I know I don't want to like market for any program, but people have different methods. I know people who didn't do any prep course and scored way better than me. So it kind of, you got to just know what works best for you. For me personally, if I didn't have a program that laid out every step, I probably wouldn't have been able to like organize myself and do it. So that was just my experience.
I can go next. So I think I'm pretty lucky because I'm a fairly good test taker. So what I did is I took about maybe 3 or 4 months, and I just bought a couple of those books, and then used Khan Academy, that's free. And then I just did a lot of practice questions. So I did buy some of those Altius practice questions. I bought Kaplan practice questions. Looking back, if I could do it over again, I think my only regret is I really just, if I started sooner, I feel like I would have done really well. You know, there were a lot of my classmates who took a whole year to study for the MCAT, and I feel like that really helped them. I think it's overkill, but I think if I could do it again, I'd start, you know, and just start like a year before I knew I was going to take the MCATs. The other thing that I think is a valuable thing that maybe people make a mistake on is I feel like you really need some accountability. So just kind of like what Maka's talking about, you don't need to buy those prep courses, but you need to figure out a way to make yourself accountable. So if you're someone that can self-study and you can figure out how to do that, but otherwise some kind of test prep program or some kind of buddies or some system is probably what you'll need to get a good score.
Yeah, I'm gonna second that. I'm gonna say don't don't feel like you have to rush it. If you're getting close to the MCAT and you haven't taken any practice tests, you should probably push your test out a little bit. I think practice tests, if you can get your hands on them, are super helpful. One, to take them to practice taking the test and then reviewing the answers, the ones you got right and the ones you got wrong, and just kind of going through, seeing what your strengths are, what your weaknesses, so you can tailor your study towards that. Definitely, I think before you start taking practice tests, definitely have a good basis for the science. Like if you haven't taken the science classes yet, it might be hard, like biochemistry, to start doing practice tests. But once you've taken biochemistry and physics, practice tests can be really helpful in your studying. And yeah, making sure you're doing it early enough. So like Micah was saying, I would say like 3 to 4 months before you start taking the test, you should probably take your first practice test, see where you are, what you need to study on. But Khan Academy, I echo that too. Khan Academy is like the best.
I took the MCAT during the pandemic and I gave myself 3 months. I actually like saved up money to like give myself 3 months off work. And then at the end of 3 months, I had to go back to work because I had no money. And then I had to study for like another 6 months, working and doing MCAT after work and on weekends. So it was rough. But I started those first 3 months, I knew they were ineffective because I just started like reading books and like I didn't touch like a single test or a practice question in those 3 months. I ended up like just like saving up for kind of like a course called UWorld, which is online and it was like self-paced, but you can also like get it with an instructor or something. And that helped me a lot more to like figure out where my holes in my knowledge were. And then I took like the 10 full-length tests that they had. And even then, like with all of that prep and like all that, how long it was, like my MCAT score was still like low for like the schools that I was applying to. So I was worried, but like at the end of the day, like all that effort and that work, like I think the hardest part for me was just like being like, okay, I'm just like gonna go in and I'm gonna take this test because like you'll never feel ready. Like there's never this point where you're like, oh yeah, this is it. Like I feel ready for this test, but just knowing like knowing when to stop, like the delaying, it was like really hard for me. So I definitely encourage like any free resources you can find because it does get very expensive. And then also there are like some scholarships that will cover like MCAT courses or like things like the courses if you're interested in that.
Yeah, I think like I kind of touched on it, but we had an MCAT prep course built into my post-bac. So probably about, I took it in January while in the post-bac, so while taking a full load of classes. I think we started around like July with like optional like in-person sessions you could go to where they'd review like some of the high yield topics, and you kind of could go whenever you wanted. And that went for like a month or two. And then basically through like fall, and we're on the quarter system here, basically throughout fall quarter, I was kind of like lightly reviewing. And then when it hit about like November, definitely like December, I just started basically using all my free time to study. I again, yeah, took like, I think I ended up taking like 7 or so full-length practice tests over the course of like 2 months, and just hitting those topics that are like harder for you. I think the advice that was given to us, which worked really well for me, is kind of like think about the sections. Like if you aren't doing super well in cars, for instance, like you need to start early because cars is the hardest one to pull your score up in because it's really just like learning how to think the way that the test wants you to. So if you're scoring lower in cars, like that one's going to be a lot harder to pull up than, for instance, like psych soc, which is just like basically, in like my opinion, it was like basically once I memorized all the terms, like it was a lot easier. Like my score shot up a lot in that section. And so I just kind of like reviewed all of that. Biology is like generally what we're studying all the time. So everyone tends to do really well in that. So like for me, it was really hard to pull my score up just because like we're kind of all on an equal playing field in that. And then Chem Phys is like more equations than anything else. And so they suggested that that was like the easiest one to pull up kind of later in your studying. And I would agree with that, because I think when I was doing the summer courses, it was a lot easier. Like I kind of felt really comfortable with it. And then I just kind of put it to the side while I focused on other things. And then I came back to it at the end and was like, I don't remember any of this anyway. So I kind of had to relearn it. Yeah, so I think it's just kind of like you have to think like what your weaknesses are and tackle those, but just understand that if like cars is one of them, then like you might need to start earlier than someone who does really well at cars off the bat. Yeah. But oh yeah, we used the Princeton review, but I think my post-bac even switched to Kaplan the year after us. So it sounds like Kaplan's kind of the go-to one.
Yeah, I agree. I think cars was actually my best section, so I guess my linguistics degree came in handy for something. Okay, one of the kind of like wrapping up, but one of the last questions I had is does your medical school have an organization for Pacific Islanders? And if not, if you're like me, I live in Indiana, how do you stay connected to your culture?
I can
Yeah,
start.
so
Go, Micah. Go.
okay, yeah, I'll start. So the answer is no. I'm the only Pacific Islander I think ever that's been at my school. So much so that I've actually tried to find, any other Pacific Islanders that are close to me. I haven't been successful, and there's nobody even knows what a Polynesian is over here. So they'll be like, oh, what's that? And then I say, oh, like Hawaii or something. And then they get it. So I think to that extent, it's a little bit lonely. I think the best thing with technology is you can connect with people all over the place. I think that's one of the nice things about this group is, it's easy to connect with other people that are Pacific Islanders. Is really my way of keeping intact. And really, that's it. So I definitely recommend some kind of online group if there's no one close to you. But if there's someone close to you, then obviously that's also a good option.
Yeah, so same with the school I'm at. It's in Rochester, New York. So upstate New York, pretty much Canada. Obviously everyone knows Hawaii, but no one's ever heard the word Polynesian before. So I've done a lot of explaining, which is good. You can educate people. But I might be like Mike, I might be the only Pacific Islander ever to go here. Like, and this school's been around for almost 100 years. But I guess a lot of people think I'm Hispanic, so that's another thing people will mistake you for if you're in a place where there's not a lot of Pacific Islanders. I'm sure in some other places, like on the West Coast, a lot of people know Pacific Islanders, so it may not be as much of an issue. But I guess to really answer the question, this has probably been the best way I've kind of kept in touch with it through this group, Pasifika in Medicine. My wife is from American Samoa, so it's been nice having being married to a Polynesian and kind of like still feeling like I'm kind of in Polynesia, but I'm not. So yeah, so I don't know if that answered your question, but to be honest, I think the best way is if you're not in a place like I'm sure San Diego has a pretty solid Pacific Islander cohort, and the Bay Area I know for sure does. But if you don't have that, then staying in touch via this group or some other groups, I think is the best way to go.
Well, I'm in Michigan. And,
I forgot the Michigan part, my bad.
No, I was just saying like Michigan, like no, like no one here. There actually, I found out there was like one person through Pasifikas Medicine that was here, and he was a third year Keith. And like the minute I saw that, I like jumped and I was like, I gotta meet Keith because there's no one else here. But yeah, like it's really tough, like to even like find like any Pacific Islander community here. And I like the only way I can really connect with my culture is just like calling my family on FaceTime and like, just like trying to connect that way. It has been isolating in that way. Like there's no like PI club. When it comes to the like club fair, you like walk around and like there's not gonna be someone there like to, you know, you can join everything else, but like yeah. And also like one thing, because I do get like a little isolated here, is like, well, I'm just trying to like figure out how to get my like home meals here. It's like I'm not that great of a cook as like my family is, and it's not going to taste the same, but I can try. So like, yeah, it's been tough, but trying to hang in there.
I guess I should speak coming from San Diego. No, we don't have an organization, if that helps. Like I actually, we have a Native American student at our school who has started his own club and was like president, secretary, treasurer of the whole thing. And he tried very hard my first year to get me to start a club. At the time, there was a third year and a fourth year the fourth year was like not Native Hawaiian, but she was from Hawaii. And then the third year was Pacific Islander by blood as well. He ended up taking a research year and other things. So he actually just graduated. So I've been really fortunate to have kind of him there the entire time. We have, I think, 3 in the class below me, which was unprecedented. But they actually had me come and talk to our administrators during my first year during one of our chairs of diversity for my class kind of went to go kind of get on them about increasing diversity, especially in somewhere in San Diego. And so they had me come speak about what it was like to be the only Pacific Islander in my class. I definitely had to field a lot of questions. You guys could see this, but I wear my tattoo very publicly. And so we started talking about tattoos in one of our classes, and everyone turned and looked at me as like, so we were talking about it in like a professionalism, like, you know, perspective. And everyone turned and looked at me and was like, what do you think, Kaela? And I was like, you know, it was very like kind of isolating experience, but an opportunity to talk about my culture, which is always appreciated. So after that, anyway, I talked to the deans, and so the next class after me had 3 Pacific Islanders. Since then, we've tried to get a few more. Unfortunately, hasn't worked out. We had 1 in our current second year class who was also from San Diego and wanted to stay here, but definitely, actually, a lot of our Pacific Islander students we lose because we don't have the funding to give them scholarships the way that other universities do. So that's also something to consider, is that there are universities who will give you scholarships to go to where they are because we're not anywhere. But the point is, yeah, we don't have an organization, but we do. Our Dean of Diversity is amazing. She's Filipino, but has kind of taken us under her wing. And so at least once, if not twice a year, she'll get all of us together for like a dinner that the school will pay for, and we'll just kind of get and talk together. We'll exchange numbers and make sure that everyone knows, you know, that there's someone there. But I think that, you know, Pacific as a Medicine it does a very similar thing where it's just like we offer our contact information, and if you need to talk to someone, like, we're here. So yeah, and then again, I dance. I'm very fortunate that I got in somewhere where there's local dance groups, and so I've continued to dance through school as well, and that's kept me pretty connected with the Pacific Islander community in San Diego.
Yeah, I guess I've had a similar experience to most of you guys, but like I grew up in Indiana and I went to undergrad here, still here for med school. So I wasn't the only Pacific Islander ever. Actually, Drew's older brother went to my school. But I guess for me, like, I'm fortunate that I have my dance group, which, you know, I've always made time to go to dance class like every weekend. It was not really an option for me since my mom is the instructor, but it's something that I've always loved, and I'm really like fortunate to be able to continue that throughout med school. I think without it, you know, I wouldn't be the person that I am today. And it's definitely very important to have a hobby outside of school. It's, yeah, very important to have something that you can do for fun, and then something that also, like, you know, helps you take care of yourself, and even better if it, you know, connects you to your community. Yeah, I don't want to take like too much more of your time, but thank you guys for being here. This was great. Glad you all could make it tonight. And if there's any questions, I believe Maka left his email in the chat. If you guys have anything else that you want to contact us about, or any questions we didn't get to, feel free. But we'll be hosting more of these workshops. We'll try to do them every month, and we'll hit different topics like MCAT and letters of recommendation and all that. So we'll be doing more of these. But yeah, thanks for being here. Yep, just checking the chat. Yes, there will be more meetings. Yeah, we're going to try to do a workshop every month. Yep. Awesome. Yep, thank you. Alrighty, and I don't know if you guys want to stay on, but we could like just debrief or just, you know, unpack.
Sure.
And, yeah. Oh my God. Audience members, you guys are free to log off, but we'll do a debriefing session. Let me stop recording.